In a quiet American town where nothing ever changes, one murder shatters the peace. A simple man, Evan Pierce, becomes the town's prime suspect, but when he finds a note saying "check the river," he uncovers a secret buried for decades. A truth that someone will kill to keep hidden. The last light in Millstone. Every small town hides its darkness. I still remember the way the streetlights flickered that night one by one, like dying candles. Millstone wasn't the kind of town where things changed much. Folks here still drove rusted pickups, the diner still smelled of burnt coffee, and everyone knew everyone else's sins by name. I'd lived here all my 43 years, working at the lumber mill by the river. A quiet life mostly, until that night. I was walking back home from McGree's bar, just 2 beers, nothing heavy, when I saw the first police cruiser tear down Main Street. Then another, then the ambulance. In Millstone, sirens meant something real bad had happened. I stopped dead in my tracks when I saw the red lights flashing outside the hardware store. Old Henry McAllister owned that store. The man was a fixture in town, always there by 7 a.m., opening up with a smile and a cough. He'd been selling nails and hammers since before I was born, but that night Henry wasn't smiling. By the time I got there, a small crowd had gathered. The sheriff's deputies were pushing folks back. I saw Sheriff Dale, a heavy-set man with a calm, measured way of speaking that could make even a murderer sit down and breathe. He was standing near the door, talking to someone from the paramedics. Then he spotted me. "Evan," he said, raising his chin, "you shouldn't be here." I froze. What happened? He hesitated, then sighed. "Henry's dead. Looks like a robbery gone wrong." My heart dropped. I'd just talked to Henry that morning about some nails I needed for fixing my porch steps. He'd smiled, told me to pay next week if I was short on cash. A robbery, I repeated, in Millstone. Sheriff Dale's eyes narrowed. "Yeah, that's what we're figuring out." He gave a look to his deputy, who pulled the crime scene tape across the entrance. Dale turned back to me. "You said you were at McGree's tonight." "Yeah, just left there. Anyone there who can vouch for that?" I nodded. "Bartender, a few regulars." He gave a short nod. "Good. Go on home, Evan. We'll talk tomorrow." I didn't argue. My stomach felt hollow, my mind spinning with questions. Millstone hadn't seen a murder in 20 years. We had petty theft, the occasional drunken fight, but not this. When I got home, the air felt heavier than usual. My old house creaked with the cold, the porch light buzzing faintly. I sat on the steps, staring into the dark. Henry had been a good man, too careful to open the store that late. Something didn't fit. The next morning I woke to the sound of knocking. Sheriff Dale stood at my door. "Mind if I come in?" he asked. I led him to the kitchen. He looked around, noticing the half-fixed porch through the window. "You were working on that yesterday?" "Yeah." "Why, Henry told someone he was meeting a man about some tools before closing last night. Any chance that was you?" My chest tightened. "No, I didn't see him after morning." He studied me a moment, his eyes hard but not cruel. "We found your name in his store ledger. A note next to it said Evan 7:30. My throat went dry. That can't be right. I wasn't there." He didn't say anything for a long while. Then he set his coffee down and stood. "Stay in town, Evan. Don't go anywhere till we're done." When he left, I sank into the chair. My mind was racing. Someone had framed me, or worse, someone wanted it to look like I'd killed Henry. Later that day, I went to McGree's again, hoping someone might have seen me leave. The bartender, Rick, gave me a strange look when I walked in. "Heard about Henry." He said quietly, "Yeah, you saw me here last night, right?" He hesitated. "I think so, around 7:30, wasn't it?" My heart skipped. "No, Rick, I left closer to 9. He frowned. "Maybe. It's all a blur, man. There were a lot of folks." I realized then how thin my alibi was, and the whole town was already whispering. By sunset, 2 things had become clear. Someone had set me up, and whoever it was knew this town better than anyone else. I stood by my window that night, watching the streetlights flicker again. Millstone looked calm, peaceful even, but beneath that quiet surface, something had gone rotten. And somehow it all led back to me. By morning, the whispers had turned into stares. When I walked into the diner, Conversations paused just long enough to remind me that my name was on every tongue. Folks didn't say much, they just looked, the kind of look that said I thought he was a good man. Guess not. Millstone had always been a town that forgave sins quietly, but murder was something else. I ordered coffee and toast. Martha, the waitress who'd served me for 20 years, avoided my eyes. Rough night, she muttered. I nodded. You could say that. She poured the coffee, her hands trembling slightly. They say you were the last one to see Henry alive. I looked up at her. That's not true. She gave a nervous shrug. That's what folks are saying. Sheriff came by this morning, asked questions. You know how people talk. Yeah, I knew. In a town like this, talk could kill faster than any gun. I paid and left. My boots echoed against the cracked sidewalk as I headed toward the lumber mill. But when I got there, my supervisor, Bill Mason, met me at the gate. Evan, he said, scratching his beard, you might want to take a few days off till things settle. Bill, come on, you know I didn't do anything. He sighed. I know, son, but the sheriff's asking questions, half the crew's nervous. Just let this blow over. I wanted to argue, but I saw the pity in his eyes, so I turned and walked away, the smell of sawdust and oil fading behind me. Back home, the house felt too quiet. Henry's death hung over everything like the stale smell of smoke after a fire. I kept replaying the last time I'd seen him morning sunshine on his dusty counter, his easy smile, the way he'd said, "Take care of that porch, Evan." And then that note in his ledger, Evan 7:30. I hadn't written that. Someone had, but why? I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the wood grain like it held answers. Then something caught my eye, a folded piece of paper tucked under the door. I picked it up. No name. Just 2 words written in shaky pencil. Check the river. I froze. The Millstone River cut through the edge of town, slow, muddy, and quiet. Kids used to fish there, though lately it was more weeds than water. Whoever left that note wanted me to find something. I hesitated. It could be a trap, but sitting here doing nothing wasn't going to clear my name. I grabbed my jacket and headed out. The November air bit at my face, and the sky was a dull gray blanket. The river sat behind the old grain silos, half hidden by overgrown brush. I climbed down the muddy bank, boots sinking into the soft ground. Then I saw it, a torn piece of blue cloth, snagged on a branch near the waterline. I pulled it free. It looked familiar. Henry's store apron had been that same shade of blue. My pulse quickened. A few feet downstream, something metallic glinted in the mud. I knelt, brushing it clean. It was a wrench, a heavy one, stained dark at the edges. My stomach turned. Before I could think what to do, a voice behind me said, "Step away from that, Evan." I spun around. Sheriff Dale stood on the bank, one hand resting on his holster. I just found it. I stammered. Someone left me a note, told me to come here. He raised an eyebrow. A note. Yeah, on my doorstep. Said to check the river. He sighed heavily. You should have called me. I swallowed. Would you have believed me? He didn't answer. 2 deputies appeared behind him, moving closer. Dale motioned for one to take the wrench. Bag it, he said. Then he looked at me again. You mind coming down to the station for a few questions? I wanted to refuse, but it wouldn't help. At the sheriff's office, the walls felt closer than usual wood, paneled, smelling of dust and old coffee. Dale sat across from me, his eyes tired but sharp. Evan, he began, you say you found that wrench because someone told you to, but you touched it, right? Yeah, I didn't think. That means your fingerprints are on the murder weapon. My heart stopped. Murder weapon. He nodded slowly. Forensics confirmed blunt. Force trauma. Henry was struck twice. Wrench matches the wounds. I leaned forward. You really think I did it? He didn't answer right away. Then he said, I think you're either guilty, or someone wants us to think you are. Then help me prove it. I said quietly. He stared at me for a long moment, then stood. Go home and don't go near that river again. When I stepped outside, the sun was gone. Millstone was wrapped in cold twilight. Across the street, I saw someone standing under a flickering streetlight, too far to make out their face, but they were watching me. I started toward them, but they turned and slipped behind the buildings near the old train yard. I followed, my breath fogging in the air. The gravel crunched under my boots. The smell of oil and rust hung heavy. I rounded a corner and froze. There on the ground was a photograph. Old, faded Henry standing in front of his store, arm around another man I didn't recognize. On the back, written in the same shaky pencil as the note, were 3 words he owed me. The wind howled through the empty train yard. My hands shook as I held the photo. Whoever this was the man in the picture, he wasn't done yet. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about Henry's death. It was about something older, something that had been buried in Millstone for years. Sleep didn't come easy that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Henry's face not as I'd last seen him, but as I imagined he must have looked on that floor of his store, eyes open to nothing. The image wouldn't leave me, and that photograph, that damn photograph, burned a hole in my mind. The stranger beside Henry, the note that said he owed me, whoever wrote that wanted me to know something. But what? By dawn, I made up my mind. I drove to the only place in town that might hold answers, the Millstone Historical Office, a glorified closet behind City Hall, run by a retired schoolteacher named Mrs. Hollins. She'd known everyone who'd ever drawn breath in this town. She looked up from her desk when I walked in. Evan Pierce, she said, adjusting her glasses. You're not in trouble again, are you? Depends on what you mean by trouble. I said quietly, sliding the photograph across the counter. You recognize either of these men? She squinted, then frowned. Well, that's Henry, of course, but the other one. Her eyes softened. That's Roy Benton. Worked at the old mill with Henry back in the 80s, before the fire. Fire. I repeated. She nodded slowly. 86. Mill caught fire in the middle of the night. They said it was an accident, but there were rumors Henry and Roy had a falling out before it happened. Roy left town right after. Some folks said Henry blamed him for the loss. Others said it was the other way around. Roy Benton. The name rang no bells, but maybe it was meant to. I thanked her and left, my mind racing. If Roy was still alive, and he thought Henry owed him something, I drove straight to the sheriff's office. Dale was behind his desk, poring over paperwork. You got a minute? I asked. He looked up, weary. Unless you're here to confess, make it quick. I laid the photo down in front of him. The man next to Henry, his name's Roy Benton, used to work at the mill. There was a fire, bad blood between them. You check old records, you'll see. Dale stared at the photo for a long time, then he sighed. You've been doing my job for me now. I'm doing it because someone's trying to hang me for something I didn't do. I shot back. He rubbed his chin. Roy Benton? Huh, can't say I've heard that name in years. I leaned closer. Then start looking, because whoever left me that note, whoever planted that wrench, they're not done yet. He studied me a moment, then picked up the phone. I'll make some calls. 2 hours later, we were standing in front of a crumbling trailer at the edge of town, the kind of place time forgot. Rusted car parts littered the yard. A half-broken porch light flickered, same as the ones on Main Street. Records say he came back 3 months ago, Dale muttered. No one noticed. He knocked on the door. Silence. He knocked again, harder. Finally, it creaked open. A man stood there, gray hair, deep lines in his face, eyes sharp as broken glass. Sheriff, he said calmly, what brings you out here? You Roy Benton? Dale asked. Used to be. His gaze slid to me. And you must be Evan Pierce. I've heard they're saying you killed your friend. My stomach tightened. You left me those notes. He smiled faintly. You're sharper than you look. Dale stepped forward. Roy, we just need to ask you a few questions about Henry McAllister. Roy's face hardened. Henry got what was coming to him. That was all Dale needed. Roy Benton, you're under arrest. But Roy moved faster than I expected for a man his age. He shoved Dale back and bolted through the back door. I chased him, my boots pounding the dirt, breath burning in my lungs. He ran toward the river, the same place I'd found the wrench. Roy, I shouted, stop. He didn't. He slipped down the embankment, half sliding, half falling, until he reached the water's edge. When he turned to face me, his eyes were wild, full of something old and broken. "He ruined me," Roy shouted over the wind. "The fire wasn't an accident. Henry did it. He blamed me so he could collect the insurance and rebuild. I lost everything." The truth hit like a hammer. Henry, the kind, dependable man everyone trusted, had built his fortune on someone else's ashes. Roy's hands shook. I came back for what he owed. Thought I'd scare him, but he laughed in my face. The sound of sirens echoed in the distance. Dale was coming fast. Roy looked at the river, then at me. "You know what it's like to lose everything, don't you, Evan?" I didn't answer. He gave a hollow smile. I just wanted him to admit it, but he wouldn't. One push, one hit, and it was over. He stepped backward into the shallows. "Tell Dale I'm sorry, Roy." "Don't," I shouted, but he was gone before I could reach him, slipping under the cold, dark water. The sheriff arrived moments later, his flashlight cutting across the current. "What happened?" I shook my head. He confessed. Then he jumped. Dale was quiet for a long time. Then he said softly, "Guess that's one way to close a case." We watched as the river carried Roy away, its surface calm again, hiding the town's sins beneath it. 2 weeks later, Henry's funeral filled the small church to the walls. Folks spoke kindly of him, maybe, because that's what people do when the truth is too heavy to carry. Dale didn't tell anyone what Roy said. He said it wouldn't change anything, but I could see in his eyes that he'd begun to doubt the neat stories people told in Millstone. After the service, he stood beside me on the steps. "You gonna stay?" he asked. I looked at the fading sunlight over Main Street, at the store Henry used to open every morning, now boarded up and silent. "Yeah," I said, "this town's still my home. Someone's gotta remember what really happened." He nodded. "Maybe that someone's you." That night, I walked down to the river again. The air was still, the water black. Somewhere beneath it lay the truth, ugly, quiet, and final. I lit a cigarette, watched the ember glow in the dark, and thought of the words Roy had left behind. He owed me, in a way. Maybe we all owed something to this town, to its silence, to its sins. The streetlights flickered once more, and Millstone slept on, pretending nothing had changed. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.